recess, and we did this morning the Pledge of Allegiance and moment of silence, so unless you guys want to do it, we're fine, right? Okay, so welcome.
Thank you.
Do we need to introduce ourselves again? That's fine. I'm Craig.
Yeah, and I'm sorry,
Oh, that's fine.
and I'll ask them maybe to,
on?
yeah. I don't hear well, so, and I apologize.
No problem. Just as a way of introduction, I'm Craig Paskowski, Chair of the Environmental Advisory Council for the past couple years now. I've been on the board for finishing up, I think, 8 years. So I'm probably going to be, this might be my last time around doing this.
So, hi, good afternoon. My name is Kurt Barrett. I am a vice chair, number one. Number two, I'm a hydrologist. Worked for NOAA for 36 years, retired in 2009, and I've been consulting for the World Meteorological Organization and USAID right now, which is an upside-down agency, like a lot of federal agencies. Anyway, it's good to be here.
Hi, Michelle Smith. This is my first term. So, yes, I am a senior environmental scientist with 22 years of experience for the environmental engineering, hazardous waste remediation, and compliance.
And from our side, I'm Kenny Kyler. I'm current president of the board. I've been on for a hair over 2 years, so new. I did construction all my life, and I went out to the Ag Center, to the environmental event, and any surprises were very pleasant. It was, you guys are outgrowing that room. I don't know how soon you think you're going to need a bigger space, but it's growing, and the contest, I don't know who won, but I don't know how you'd vote. It's about half, well, over half probably looked like winners. You know, it was awesome. I did spend some time talking with the Sierra Club, and it was a great talk, and you know, we went back and forth. I did joke with them about, like my joke a minute ago, which aren't always effective. They talked about wanting to come here and talk about plastic bags, and we support that. And I said, well, I refuse to use one-time plastic, but plastic bags I'm okay with. But I said, I've got to tell you, you guys wanted to save trees, and the plastic bags are kind of your fault. And you know, we go through cycles of, I'm old enough, I paid deposit on glass bottles, and that wasn't good enough, and we got this one-time plastic use that's ridiculous, and we cycle, you know, and some of the problems we cause. Now, I always bring up my wife. We're traveling someplace, and she doesn't allow me to shop. So we're in a grocery store, and the lady at the register says, paper or plastic? And I said, I'll pay cash. And everybody laughed. So that's me. Go ahead.
I'm Joe Vigliotti. I'm the Vice President of the Board of Commissioners, and I represent District 1, which is basically the northwestern part of the county.
Commissioner Tom Gordon, so it's District 3, which would be Westminster and part of the surrounding area.
Hi, Commissioner Mike Guerin. I'm the District 4 Carroll County Commissioner, which is the southwestern portion of the county. And, you know, it's interesting, as we're getting ready for this meeting, I wanted to commend you, Brenda, and all the rest of the council on what you do here in terms of where the members are, who's on the board, and what their status is. I wish the other commissions and councils did the same thing. So this is like fantastic. Everything you've put together is actually fantastic, but I can't tell you how much from the board perspective it matters to us to see the member activity and see where everybody is in their terms and who's who. So thank you very much for this.
Thank you. Glad it's helpful.
Deb, do you want to introduce yourself?
I'm Deb Effingham. I'm the Deputy County Administrator.
Well, so I'll start off by just reviewing what the purpose of this meeting is. So every year, the Environmental Advisory Council has a joint meeting with the board so that we can do two primary things. The first is to review the annual report from the prior year. The Code Chapter 31 requires that the EAC reports to you annually. So we put together this annual report and then review it with you because it seemed like a good forum to provide that information. And then the other primary purpose is each year the EAC puts together a work plan for the coming calendar year with proposed projects that they want to review with you and get your informal concurrence on whether these projects look good for them to proceed and if there's any others that you wanted to add to it. So that's kind of the purpose of the meeting, and at the end of going through those things, if there's anything else you want to discuss, we have an other on the agenda. So you should have in front of you a copy of the agenda, a copy of the annual report, a copy of the proposed work plan, and we also provided copies of all the work products. Do you not have copies? It might have been in your...
It looks like we all do. Yeah.
The work products that they finished this prior calendar year, you should have copies of that as well. And then I also included in your packet a copy of the 2023 Environmental Stewardship Booklet and the quick reference guide that goes with it, because that's one of the proposed projects for this year that needs to be updated. So that was just to remind you what was in there. So that's kind of the purpose of the meeting, and just by way of brief reminder, the role of the EAC, the primary purpose is to advise the board on emerging environmental issues at your request. So if there is something that is an environmental issue that comes out and you want some information from them in the past prior, what we've done is we put together, they do the research, we put together some background information, we provide options, pros and cons for each, and then provide that information to the board. And if there's direction, there's direction. If not, it's up to you on what you do with it at that point. When there's not an emerging environmental issue, the EAC then, their secondary role is public education. So a lot of what you see is public outreach materials that have been put together. They don't duplicate what staff is already doing. They might support what they're doing or do something completely different. A lot of this stuff is not stuff that our department even deals with, and even Public Works, some of their environmental issues is nobody's doing this, so it's not overlapping what we're already doing. And then, of course, it is unique to them, their projects. So that's the EAC's role, and so I wanted to, Craig will walk you through the annual report so he can share what they've accomplished last year.
Thank you, Brenda. Yeah, so 2024, one of the first things that we did was this public outreach piece on water conservation. Most of our stuff, almost all of our stuff, is really targeted to residents, homeowners, such. And this one kind of grew out of, in 2023, if you remember, there was a pretty severe drought. And Maryland DEA, MDE, sorry. They issued a drought warning for us. So we thought, well, let's do something to try to get homeowners thinking about ways that they can conserve water. And when we started this was the first project that we did. So it was targeted for like spring and early summer to get this done. As we were putting it together, we had a pretty decent amount of rain in the spring last year. And I was thinking, well, I wonder how relevant this is going to be. But of course, as it turns out, once we got to summer and fall, we're at severe shortage. So this might be, and it's not just, it's also targeted. We typically list reasons why this is an issue. So it's not just the drought. Water issues, it's important to conserve water just because it's important for our development as a county. It's important as a resource, and without it, we're not going to have a future. So And that went out, and it's certainly, this one is certainly something that's probably going to be relevant as we move forward in years to come, the way the climate seems to be going. Right.
And that covers the municipalities as well. We contacted all of them for the drought measures that they have in place as well, so that's included.
Our second project was this reduce food waste at home. Again, it was targeted to residents, whether they're homeowners or not, and it talks about the issues and the problems related to food waste. And this is really eye-catching. The whole first page basically are some stats and some striking numbers as far as the amount of material that goes into the landfill, how much food that we throw away. So let's see. Also, again, this lists a lot of tips that people can do for reducing food waste at home, right? And options for what they can do with extra food, right? Most of our stuff, has this kind of approach to it, called why is this an issue, what you can do individually or as a group, and then on the back there's a lot of resources and links. It's not meant to be all-encompassing, right? It's just basically to get, people thinking about the issue. I think it's a little hard to measure the impact for some of these things. Again, it's educational. We just hope to put it in people's heads to think twice about it. And they can, all these resources are here. If they want to look at how much farther they want to do, it's available to them.
And you mentioned feeding to animals, and I don't know if people realize how effective that can be. I'm naive. I thought goats would eat anything. They won't, but chickens will. And all our food scraps go to the chickens, and it's gotten so Emmanuel Church does a food pantry once a week. Rhonda brings big boxes of scraps, if stuff is aged out or whatever, and again, our chickens, they knock us down getting to it. It's they really, really like it. It's, so it's a good way. We try to throw no food scraps into our garbage. She keeps me from remembering.
Well, that's interesting too, because we had a speaker in at one point during the year that was talking about food scraps and providing them to farms. There are some legalistic limitations to, like, if I wanted to take my scraps to even perhaps across the street, I've got farms across the street. It'd be nice to see where it'd be made a little easier to be able to do that. I think Frederick County has passed some legislation for composting on farms, right? And I think as we get along, that would probably, become more and more relevant.
Yeah, and we don't, we compost animal waste, not the foods, and we do a little bit of that because we have a big bin, and we'll throw some stuff on it, but it's, and it's, like you say, it's so meaningful. A couple of landscapers that'll stop by, they call it gold dust when they dig in the bottom of it, and it creates an awesome product.
Yeah, I'm still working and perfecting my own compost. It's a little heavy on coffee grounds.
Really?
Yeah.
And
is very
they're
acidic.
good?
Hmm?
They're-
Oh, yeah.
They're good in it?
Yeah, particularly for like around, so there are some plant azaleas, blueberries, and that kind of stuff, like acidic soil. So,
Acidic,
you
yeah.
do that, yeah. And then the final project that we did was a piece for to reach out to scouts, Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts. I think they just use scouts in general at this point. And that's really kind of designed to reach out to them to facilitate how we can work together on their projects. A lot of scout groups have do environmental cleanups and streams, trails, and that kind of stuff. And it's how we can perhaps provide gloves, coordinate with the trash pickup after they collect it. So it's just assisting and identifying, how we can work together. Right. And that came out in the fall, so I'm not sure if we've gotten any feedback on that or anybody's contacted us.
Yeah, I haven't heard whether our resource management folks have been contacted, but we, generally they offer a stream cleanup and a tree planting every fall and every spring, and that's the kind of thing we were hoping to, entice them to volunteer at, and so we know that they received it because they have confirmed that.
And we did have a Girl Scout group that participated in the environmental symposium. So they had a table, and then they did a demonstration as well.
They did a demonstration on composting.
Yes.
And they're out of Sykesville, and they've done some demonstrations down there, and they've had at their farmers market on Sunday. They've done some demonstrations on composting and informational things, and they've got a little network that they're building where they collect from residents. So.
There's also a Girl Scout troop, I forget what number it is, that's kind of informally adopted the Bennett Surf Park. And so every, like, a couple times a year, I'll get an email from them with pictures of the trash that they picked up, and I believe they planted a tree out there as well. So it's all very positive stuff.
Can I get some additional copies of at least the Scout stuff? I'm meeting some Boy Scouts Sunday and some Cub Scouts next Friday, and I think it will prod their interest.
How many copies would you
Fantastic.
like?
How many copies would you like?
20? No, I
Oh,
didn't hear
okay.
that. I was thinking, yeah.
Okay, I'll get that up to your office.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, so those were our three major, projects that we did. We also, towards the end of the year, compiled that, and particularly Brenda put together our kind of synopsis of the year, and also work on a plan for 2025. One of the things we also do is we have tours and then some briefings during the year too, so that we can stay up to date on what's going on county, regionally. As I mentioned, well, I didn't mention it. We had a briefing from Dan Barry from NOAA, right, who gave us a pretty great view of what's happening climate-wise in a regional fashion, but also got down to pretty specific identifications. I think what stood out, what he said to me, is that you think that there's higher temperatures during the day. Seems like 90s. We had some pretty bad hot weather, but I guess it's the temperatures at night that don't seem to be going down as low as they typically should be. Right. So lots of nice tidbits like that to know. Right, the one that I had mentioned, it was Shannon McDonald that was in from MDE, and she talked about food waste and the laws and regulations that pertain to that end of it. And then in October, we had a great tour from Clef Angle of the landfill, and particularly in light of the expansion there and the proposal of with the potential of what can be done there. That was very enlightening and entertaining.
And cold.
A little breezy, but you got to see bald eagles that hang out there. So you got to see some of the way things work there, and you can see why he wants to change things to make them a little more efficient and flow wise too. Okay. We also participated in a couple of events. Earth Day out at Bear Branch, right? Bear Branch. We have a table and we have all our material kind of set up so people can stop by and pick up some of that. A lot of children were at that one. And then we were also at the Environmental Symposium, at the end of October, which saw out. And that was a great turnout. And hopefully we'll be there again, right? So I don't know that we had any kind of citizen concerns. We had a couple people just show up for meetings, really just kind of to see, kind of what, out of curiosity. I think one lady had a couple questions for us, but it wasn't a whole lot of citizen interaction for us. Then the rest of this report is, as Commissioner Gordon mentioned, the list of the members and when their terms expire, this and that. So, do you have any questions on last year? It's hard to believe that it's already a year since I was here last time. Things are going quick. So, looking ahead then, 2025. A couple of the things that we are looking to do is, as I think Brenda mentioned, updating the environmental stewardship booklet, which is something we do every other year. And I have an old one here from 2021. And when I was looking through some of my material the other night, I think I have them from 2017, 2019, yeah, but I don't have the newest one. But so that gives you a good overview of the way the county addresses a lot of environmental issues. Particularly, a lot of it is embedded in just the way we do things in each department. Oh, thank you. I'm surprised I didn't have one. So a lot of that, what we'll do there, the board really kind of looks as far as content goes, and if we need to tweak anything or add some things. We really, Brenda really revamped it a little bit visually this past year. But a lot of it, too, is updating a lot of the numbers. For instance, the ag preservation acreage, always goes up, things like that. So that's good. Is this mine?
Yes.
Back to your members. Tom Scanlon, did he term out, or how long was he on?
He's still on.
still-
He's still on the
Just
board.
wasn't going to be here today.
He was sick.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
gotcha. Okay,
can't
I
look on
wondered,
here.
because I expected to see him today.
He
and-
had planned to be here, but he and his wife both got
Okay,
sick.
okay.
His term expires in May.
Yeah, I thought maybe you had lost him or something.
No, we actually have a full board,
Good.
right? Which that happens on occasion. I don't want to jinx it. I don't want to jinx it. With Michelle coming on this year, and we also have this other lady, Ashley, who was there for our last meeting. So, yep. So our main public outreach piece that we are proposing for this year is titled Climate Resilience in Your Own Backyard. Right. So generally this would look at ways homeowners can make their lawns a little more environmentally friendly. A typical, like a fescue lawn, it does capture some carbon, but it's kind of negated by the care and maintenance of that with fertilizers, weed killers, overwatering, and particularly like gas-powered equipment, which, mowers, blowers, and that kind of stuff. I saw something in a Princeton study that said, like the care for our lawns accounts for about 5% of the greenhouse gases in the United States. So this is, again, the idea here is to plant this seed, so to speak, in people's minds of, well, Do I need to mow 5 acres time-wise too? So we didn't, specifically list the topics that might discover. We kind of kicked around some ideas that we could include in that, like different types of grasses that are drought resistant, substituting portions for like edible landscape, right? And there are alternatives to traditional ones like clover, ground cover, that kind of stuff.
Also-
Particularly drought resistant is kind of a good thing too.
Also, as far as public outreach is concerned, I remember last year, and I've certainly heard from a number of farmers and citizens about spotted lanternflies and other invasive species. I seem to remember there being some concern about that when we talked last year. Did you get any input from citizens about that, invasive species or anything of that nature?
We did not get any input from citizens. The state has programs in place for spotted lanternflies, and the county even, keeps records and does public outreach. But the EAC 2 years ago?
Yeah, 2 years
did
ago
an
we did
invasive
invasives.
plants
Right,
outreach.
right, yeah.
piece.
I remember it was some kind of like, trying to remember some kind of bush or something, or some, trying to remember.
Princess tree?
I'm sorry?
Princess tree?
Oh, there's Tree of
The spotted
Heaven.
lantern.
The Tree of Heaven is the one
Tree of
that,
Heaven.
that the spotted lanternflies really enjoy.
And by getting rid of those, we cut down on the population of land. Okay. Thank you.
Well, I guess it's a matter of,
Helps.
they might help take care of that issue to some degree, right? What I know, and I'm not an expert on that part of it, is, at one point, I guess they wanted to report, if you saw lanternflies,
Right.
step on them. I don't know if that's still even the case because they're just so prevalent,
So many.
right? And I mean, you're chasing your tail. We're hoping in the field that it's kind of like the stink bugs, where there was a big deal about them, a huge concern, they're going to ruin apple crops and all this. And they peaked, now they've kind of leveled off to a certain, annoyance, right? I think I saw, some stuff out of Pennsylvania where they were really bad a couple years ago. It wasn't as bad this past year.
And I was
So,
asking about that
yeah.
too, because I think I read some article about how where they showed up in Pennsylvania, the lanternflies,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, the stink bugs and then the lanternflies.
Mhm.
It's like the population reaches a certain point, then it almost kind of like craters. And so
Yeah.
they figure that'll be the
Yeah.
case with spotted lanternflies elsewhere over the coming years.
Yeah, and there's particular trees that they like, the maples, oaks, and I don't know how much damage per se. If it's a matter of how many are on them at a time, they can certainly wipe stuff out. Again, it's going to be what it's going to be. I don't think they've come up with any. I haven't seen anything as far as like spraying for them yet, but certainly if it continues to be an issue, they'll come up with something.
Thank
Yeah.
you very much.
Anecdotally, I spent a lot of time, in the woods this winter deer hunting, and I'm not sure what trees they're specifically attracted to. You could probably tell me, but it appeared to me that they had really wiped out a lot of the trees in this forest I was in, and then the ones that fell, took out other trees, just blackened trunks. It really looks awful. It almost looks like the tree's been burnt. It looked like maybe it was a gum tree or something to that effect, and they had just really torn up some of this one particular forest, and Taylorsville is where it was.
Where was it?
Taylorsville.
Taylorsville? Wow, okay.
Yeah, but there's, like you mentioned, they're so prevalent now, I don't know if it's worth even trying to report them anymore because they just seem to be everywhere.
Right, right.
So-
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens this year. Originally we were supposed to, keep an eye on our trucks and making sure we don't, or your cars, you should look at trailers, even like if you went hunting, to make sure you don't bring back
Oh.
any eggs when you come back to your house. And that kind of
Unfortunately, I didn't bring anything back with me after I went hunting this year, so that's a whole other subject, but,
It's for the fun of it. Okay. So yeah, Okay, moving on from the backyard stuff. The other thing we'll be doing this year, and we also do every other year, is giving out the environmental action awards, right? Which we 2 years ago we did them at the environmental symposium at the Ag Center, and that turned out really well. We got a lot of nominations for that. It was very difficult to actually choose winners. In regard to that, like that's a little more, it's a little more hands-on for the board. We solicit like gifts for the winners. We've had a $1,000 scholarship for the student. Student engagement is one of the categories there. We had a $1,000 scholarship for the winner, $500 for the second place, and then we've had like gift baskets and other, tokens of appreciation for that. And that kind of recognizes those individuals or groups and even businesses in the community that are taking some either educational-wise or some physical projects that they do to help the environment. Right? And at that symposium, we'll also have our table out and with all our guides and this and that, so that people can pick up. So that's, I believe, scheduled in October still. We'll see.
The Environmental Action Awards isn't just, somebody submitted some things and they chose one. Like, there's a lot of background stuff and work that needs to go into it, like public out, getting the word out that they're available and trying to get people to submit nominations, getting nomination forms developed and all those other things. And then as Craig mentioned, the EAC members are the ones who actually go out and solicit the awards for the winners. So that's a lot of legwork for them as well.
Yeah, a couple years ago, we updated the, I guess, the judging criteria for it. So there's definitely a whole list in several categories, 5 categories, I believe, where we give three, okay. Where we give a score on, if they, on public outreach, impact and this, that. So we judge it, and it's very official. 3 categories that we give out, but we also score in, I think, several other
Oh, you're talking about the ranking
Scoring,
criteria,
yeah,
yeah.
the rankings. Yeah. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that again, because that every year we seem like we have quite a few more nominees, and actually that's how I even became aware of the Environmental Advisory Council, because I was nominated and won an award like way back when. So again, I think that's kind of an example of how what we do is the educational and the impact we have. It's hard to measure, but hopefully that spreads out and becomes wider and wider. What else are we doing? Well, let's see. On our list too is this residential gray water, which we still apparently have not received any kind of. The state has not produced any kind of regulations on that, so that's been in a holding pattern for
Since
a number of
2018.
years now. Right, so I would doubt that would crop up. Okay, we also address citizens' concerns and public education. We do the informational tours. Like I said, last year we did the landfill. I'm not sure if there might be something on our agenda this year too. There's also an ad hoc committee where we serve on appeals of environmental codes, and it lists the environmental management and different codes in the county that we would hear any appeals. Fortunately, we didn't have one to do this past year.
Does that typically happen often or very rare?
Only ever had 2. And what happens is we have 9 members on the EAC. 3 of them are chosen or volunteer, depending on their schedules, to be on. It's called ad hoc because there's not a committee until an appeal comes up. And then we work with the county attorney's office, and 3 members will serve on that, hear the appeal, and and then kind of make a decision there. And the appeal is from his decision on the matter, on these
And
environmental.
you're
codes.
telling me they rarely appeal his decision?
That's, yes. And just to clarify, what the county code requires is that if somebody does appeal my decision on like a variance or something like that, they would contact the Board of County Commissioners, and then it's your decision as to whether you want to hear the appeal directly or if you want to appoint a board. Historically, in the two that we've had, the EAC has served as that board for you to hear that appeal. But it's entirely up to your decision as to if you want to hear it or appoint whoever you'd like to hear the appeal. And knock on wood, we'll just continue not having them.
Did they overturn you?
No, they did not. I was successful in
So
both.
I say, it works, keep doing it.
Yeah, both of them were tough choices, and you know, makes me appreciate the job that you guys have to do, making some tough choices.
Yeah.
You know, because there's two sides to, you know, to every story. Okay. So yeah, I guess we need your approval for those particular projects that I spelled out.
Concurrence, no vote needed, just general concurrence.
Nod, shake your head. And then also, if you all have any particular issues you would like us to look into, you can, this is the, I guess, open portion where you can throw it at us.
You know, yeah, Craig, you got me thinking about something. So nothing, I mean, there's nothing's better when you can find a way to help and improve the environment, at the same time find ways to save money doing it. That's a win-win, and something that's sort of a nexus that I think we all should be working towards. And it's far too often, you know, things are sort of divided up into ideological lines, and that's unfortunate because the environment suffers when that happens. So I just wonder if maybe there might not be an opportunity for the council to really consider or maybe eventually embark on some sort of effort where you're providing the board with ways that the county might be able to save money by not doing things or doing things differently. I mean, you mentioned mowing, and we all know that both sides of mowing, people want to see things mowed nicely, but you don't really have to do that. Whether that's the way the county's sort of doing things in terms of, maybe it's in terms of logistics, or maybe how we're doing our supply, how we're doing things around the county. You mentioned Cliff Engel. I mean, him and his staff do such a wonderful job with the landfill. But, you know, if he's telling you that maybe there's a way to do things differently, I mean, those folks have their hands full, and you're the Environmental Advisory Council. So I haven't discussed any of this with my fellow commissioners, but maybe there's a way for, in 2025, for the council to leverage your expertise to extend to the board here maybe some ideas or thoughts on, you know what, you're doing this, and if you didn't do it, you know, you would save money and help the environment at the same time. It's a win-win, and something that, quite frankly, I think some of us is very much on our minds in terms of budgeting and things of that nature. But mowing may be a good example, and I know there's two sides to every story, but that might be an interesting sort of example of things we might be able to do differently. So I know it's you know, a little extra work for the staff, but perhaps that's something in at least early 2025 or 2025 in general that you could maybe look at for the board and provide us with what you find, and maybe there's some things in there that we can do differently.
Commissioner Guerin, there is an effort going on right now with our Department of Recreation and Parks, looking at all of our parkland and what can we do, just like a rough mowing and maybe once every couple of months instead of mowing each time. So maybe they can work together with the EAC on
that would be wonderful. Yeah, that would be wonderful, because again, you've got a level of expertise that, quite frankly, you know, not everybody's going to have. I mean, you come from different walks of life, so that might be a great sort of force multiplier for their efforts and anybody else who's looking at it. So I leave that in your and Brenda's hands, but maybe that's something we can look at and do. Thank you, Deb, for
That's a
that.
great idea.
We'll talk to Deb and Roberta about like how this could become, you know, a project for the EAC, like what they could do on that.
All right, thank you.
I have a quick question. It's not really a comment. Obviously, you've got Girl Scouts and Scouting America. Has anybody utilized and worked with you to do a Eagle Scout project at any point?
We've had some of the winners of the awards in the past have done Eagle Scout projects.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was just curious, that might be a good way for them, obviously, to get their Eagle Scout project done, but it would also be a benefit to the community as a whole, which is usually how that works anyway.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of part of the idea behind, you know, the outreach piece that we did there.
Your board, you have two people that are ending a full term. Do they want to do a second term, or they're done? And then how do you guys have a network you reach out to try to find people? It's like, you know, it's on the website, and Wanda takes people that want to be on boards, but lots of times they don't know what's open and, you know, what the time frame is and all that. Do you guys reach out for that, or kind of look at whoever Wanda gets and then you recommend?
A lot of it is word of mouth. We've also sent out like a press release every so often to say, hey, we've got an opening on the Environmental Advisory Council if you're interested. And the past several times we've had openings, we have had multiple applicants to choose from. So we
Yeah.
seem to be doing
Well,
okay lately.
We've also, you know, in the past, like I said, a couple events that we go to, the symposium and the Earth Day is typically all too. We've had people come up and inquire about even serving on the board. I know a few years ago, when we had openings, I'd say, well, yeah, we have a couple of people. So it's something that we mention also, that people that kind of express an interest as they're passing by us.
And I put together some flyers for that event so that when those people
Yeah.
come up, you know, this is what the EAC does. And I have a flyer that's, here's what the EAC does, and here's how you can apply, and what you would be doing, and all that, so that if somebody is interested, we have something immediately to give them with contact information and directs them how they can apply.
So I want to commend Commissioner Guerin for that awesome idea about how we can work together to try to find cost savings while also protecting the environment at the same time. And I'll take it to another extent as well. I mean, you were all fighting or trying to fight the power lines. And, you know, speaking with citizens and speaking with farmers, we hear about, well, you know, maybe bog turtles are going to be affected, or certain kinds of trees, or certain watershed areas, or what, you know, certain kinds of birds, eagles, whatever. Owing to your level of expertise, I mean, would you be able to look at the projected course of that power line and come back to us with some specifics? Because, you know, it's one thing somebody will say like, oh, well, maybe it's going to affect eagles. But if you can come back to us and say, it definitely is going to affect an eagle environment, or it is going to rupture the ecosystem that the bog turtle exists in, for example, that is solid information that we can in turn take to the Public Service Commission to try to stop this thing. And I would very much appreciate that.
Yeah, so if I may, that process will happen during the development review process because those bald eagles, bog turtles, those are endangered species, and so they will have to work with Department of Natural Resources to identify if there are any habitat impacts. And so from a regulatory perspective, that those actions will happen as part of the development process.
Before or after getting to the Public Service Commission?
So
Because,
as
you know,
part of their application to the PSC, they made those inquiries to DNR to identify those locations where there are potential impacts. At the application stage, I don't think they have to address mitigation if there are any impacts. That'll happen during the development of the construction plans and mitigation plans and so on. So the PSC and the Power Plant Research Program, the PPRP, who's reviewing the application for completeness, are aware of the documentation that there are impacts and where those impacts are roughly. How they would be mitigated, I don't believe they have figured that out. That would happen during the development review process.
Well, and I'll be honest, I'm not, and this is no disrespect I don't care what that company does, I don't care when they do it. I mean, for our sake and for our knowledge, I would like to have this information to, you know, not just to be able to give to our citizens and have on hand, but again, when we go before them to try to throw back that application, to stop it in the first place, I'd like us to have that information as well,
Yeah.
not just it being part of a process. And I would to be honest, I would much rather, not much rather, I would far better trust our people than, some agency in some other county or some other part of
Yeah.
the state. So
Yeah, yeah.
I'm
We can
much rather
certainly-
trust you and this committee than somebody, again, no disrespect to them, but they don't know Carroll County the way that we do. So.
Very true.
Well,
Yeah.
and I think
That's a good point.
we need to look at it. One, everybody's goal is to stop it. Let's assume we don't reach that goal. Now we need to minimize the damage, and I'm worried about a couple things. Will the state, will PSC waive some of our power? I fully understand that the power line may cross through wetlands. They shouldn't have a foundation in wetlands. They shouldn't have an
Right.
access road through wetlands, but in the air, it could. And I'm skeptical if we're gonna be able to control all that. So I think anything we can be proactive about, it benefits us now.
Yes.
Yeah, I would concur, and I completely understand where you're coming from, Chris, because you live in that sort of, that black and white world, and
Yep.
things are either
Yeah.
they're in the guardrails or they're not, but I think it's an interesting point, an interesting ask. I mean, if the Environment Advisory Council were to independently review that pathway and come back and tell the board, yeah, there's some problematic areas there, we would appreciate that. We'd appreciate having that information, and that's obviously entirely up to the council, how much time you want to spend doing that. But if together you were able to provide us with some information in terms of the danger that it might pose to certain areas, maybe it's one area, maybe it's a dozen. Again, given your expertise in your areas, that would be something this board would very much like to have.
Yeah.
And you mentioned mitigation. In one of my conversations with PSCG, they expect Public Service Commission to make demands on them. And we need to think hard, do we want them to give us a park? Do we want them to do tree restoration and mitigation like a normal contractor would? But, and they mentioned a park. I didn't think of that, if they're gonna take X number of acres, we want that replaced too. And we need to start thinking about what we want that's a little bit outside of what you normally think about. I think about the 150 feet they're gonna go through and maybe 100 feet on each side, but if they come through Manchester and we ask them to expand Christmas Tree Park or Cape Horn Park, I kind of said, you guys need to think about what you want. And I thought, almost said a bad word. But, darn, I didn't think you cared about what we wanted. But so I think there's a possibility they're going to be made to do some things for Carroll County.
Yeah.
And we need to be ready to ask.
Yeah. No, it sounds like a good plan B. I mean, plan A obviously is let's not have it happen, but you know what? We've seen it before. We get forced to take something and then, yeah, let's have a plan B. Yeah.
Do you have a sense of their time frame?
I do not. I can only relate it to our experience with the solar projects that are also going through the Public Service Commission process. The solar project that's the furthest along, that was initially applied for last February, and they're just now getting, there's a draft decision. It has not been finalized yet. So it's been a year-long process for I think it's a 14-acre solar project. So I could only imagine that if the power line were to follow the normal process through the PSC, it would be at least a year through that process. Now, on the one hand, there are the legal issues and a lot more public outreach and so on. It's a much bigger project. On the other hand, I don't know what kind of power that the federal government can exert on the state process to expedite it and make it go fast. So it remains to be seen, but I frankly would be shocked that it would be in our shop for our review within a year. I think it's going to be at least a year going through the PSC process.
And their initial time frame that they shared with us and shared with you didn't seem to allow for any of that. So I'm wondering if PJM, they've changed their talking points a little bit. They saw early on that we're not crazy about running straight through us to serve Virginia. So now it's brownouts and blackouts and I don't want to get into all my opinions on climate change, but and I was thinking about when he was talking about that, that's real. Now, you know, Al Gore had us dead 20 years ago. That didn't happen. You know, these transmission lines, are they positive to fight climate change, or are they negative? You know, and Maryland imports 40% of their energy, and that's our fault. Now, we're closing coal-fired plants, that's also our fault. You know, maybe we need to convert them, maybe we need to do whatever, but a lot of that mindset leads to transmission lines. Now, the other thing PJM's working on is a huge power line from Missouri to here, and the reasoning is Missouri can produce electric cheaper than we can. Well, yes, they can, because they don't have the regulations we have. Now, why is it okay to transmit it from them, who are what we would call cheating, and we can't do it in Maryland? You know, we have to compromise on some things. You know, I've argued, and of course Maryland's very progressive, and maybe DC won't be so much now, but to say that I have to drive an electric car in 5 years, why not say I need to drive a decent hybrid in 5 years? You know, we don't have the electric to plug in my car, you know, so it's, can we compromise? And by nature, your committee is passionate about a lot of this stuff, but sometimes, and I'm not good at it, you guys are I'm sure much better, sometimes compromise is a good thing. You know, but you feel you're not giving in, you're compromising, you know what I mean? And I don't know if humans are good at that or not, but it just seems like, you know, watch what we wish for, and we get in a hole with things, and Maryland's dug itself a pretty deep hole on energy.
Did you intend that pun by nature? The environmental committee is interested in.
A little. I told them earlier before the meeting, I do very, very bad jokes and puns.
Yep, that was good though. That was clever. That one.
Yeah. But it's just, you know, sometimes we need to think outside the box, and that's what got me about, you know, I don't want to assume we're going to lose the fight, but if we do, let's get everything we can out of it.
Yeah. I've wondered if the intent of the transmission line is to improve the grid, and so if there is a benefit for Maryland and so on because of that, then will that be reflected in our utility bills? Which, as if you're watching social media, is blowing up right now because there's a huge increase. So is there a correlation there? If we're forced to have this transmission line, will that equate to some sort of reduction to every citizen?
And I think this one might not be, but once they get this one, PJM wants to run the one from the Midwest, and is that gonna be, oh, we can get your electric bill back to what it used to be, you know, and yes. And we need some of that. It's, the whole grid hasn't been very well planned, and, you know, it's amazing to me that Maryland needs to import, but Pennsylvania is selling it like crazy, you know?
Yeah.
And we're not that far apart.
Yeah.
I just want to make a statement. I think I'm really pleased to hear your interest in getting more information on this, because it's a major issue that's only going to get more, higher impact in the future. So why not deal with it now? And then getting you more information in terms of environmental impacts, and also what are options in the road ahead that you can be looking at. Either way, either if we don't stop it, fine, there are still options on how to then implement and minimize, like you said. And I'm really glad to hear that, and I'm hoping we can put something together that would help you in your decision-making, because it's not going to be easy.
No. It's like the appeals. If it was easy, we'd do it, but. Guys?
Okay. Okay. Thank you for
got
having
Any
us.
questions for us?
No, I'm, you know, again, I echo Kurt that, you know, great that we, you know, got your feedback and your input. And I think, you know, the more voices we hear and the more information we get, and that's our job, is to kind of suck all this in and try to make some sense out of it.
Thank you, by the way, for serving on this committee.
Yes.
Thank you for taking the time and the effort.
Yeah, very few people recognize, we talk about rec and parks, but we don't talk much about the boards and commissions. How many people are volunteering to serve their community? And it goes unseen, which, but it's great.
Yeah. Thank you.
So, motion to adjourn, or are we still gonna?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
My motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?